Hello and welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today. I've got special guest as I was going to say as usual, but recurring guest Nate Jones from Structurally. He's the CIO over there. Also, I believe the founder or the co-founder. Is that right?
Yep.
If you're not familiar with Structurally, here's what it is. It's pretty much the coolest thing that I know about for following up with your leads using AI-driven texting, emailing, and ringless voicemails too, right?
Just calling actual voicemails with that. So
Okay,
phone
actual
calls.
voicemails.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know what? At the end of these calls, sometimes I give a phone number that people can call and do a demo. Do you have that number handy? If you don't, it's fine. We'll just put it in the show notes. But I'd like to give it early in the in the podcast so people make sure they hear it because I want people to get this demo. It is really, really, really cool.
I can get it for you here shortly. I don't right off the top of my head,
That's
but
okay. I'll put it in the
I'll
show
get
notes.
it.
Here, do this,
Okay.
people. Look in the show notes. It'll be there. So you don't even need to find it. Don't worry. We'll get it. We'll put it in the show notes. Go call this number because here's what's going to happen. You're going to call this number and you're going to be greeted by an artificial intelligence, non-human that is going to be extremely human-like and they're just going to talk to you and have a conversation with you and you're going to be blown away. It's really cool and that's what these guys do. They make this available to you to use in your business for I don't it's like a nickel a month or something. It's really really inexpensive. I think Nate said all level 10 contractor customers and listeners can have it for 5 cents per month. Was it 5 cents? I think it might be a little bit more.
1 penny. Yep.
1 penny. No,
It
it's very
it's pretty cheap.
affordable. It's very,
Yep.
very affordable for what you get. I mean, it's really amazing. So, I've had Nate on before. We talked all about the details of how structurally works. So go look that up, do the demo, look in the show notes to get that phone number. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here today to talk about AI and lead generation. We're kind of going into a whole new world here with the TCPA thing. I've talked about it multiple times on the podcast before. I know that it's very topical for you right now, Nate. So let's talk about this AI and lead generation in 2025, given sort of the new landscape.
Yeah. So high level, I'm sure everyone on your podcast knows exactly what's going to happen. But high level, on January 27th, just a few days from now, uh, everyone will require one-to-one consent in order to for lead generation. So if someone is filling out a form on your website, you have to have proven one-to-one consent as well as a few other updates to your forms, and that has to be undeniable proof. And that's usually where most contractors kind of like stop researching is, oh, my lead gen partners, level 10, my website, the aggregators, Angie, they'll all take care of it for me. It's done from a lead gen perspective. Where contractors forget to figure out and get their ducks in a row is that this law actually applies to how you text and call leads too. It's actually why the law was mostly invented. This law was primarily started to reduce spam calls, which is a great idea because we all get spam calls all the time. But the law was essentially put in place to say there is no such thing as a lead filling out a form on a national website and then getting resold 4 times. That's illegal. That is why they're doing this law to cut down on those spam calls and texts. And what contractors need to start to understand and realize is this law is going to apply to how you call and text your leads as well, not just your lead generation efforts. So there's a that's what Structurally does. We call tens of thousands of leads a day. So we are in the sites of the FCC and we are in the sites of them on behalf of you, our customers, contractors. Because if you don't get one-to-one consent on your forms and then you use a product like us or even any sort of dialer to call or text someone, then you can get sued and the provider, us, could get sued as well. So I'm kind of just going out into the market and just saying like let's all figure this out together so we don't all get sued.
Okay, so for new leads that come in the door, This is fairly easy to remedy. Like all of the level 10 websites, we've gone back and made sure that they're TCPA compliant. So if you get a lead that comes through a form, you're going to be safe because the way that the form is set up, it's going to get those permissions. What about old leads, people that are on your database from 2024, let's say, even fairly
Yep.
recent? Lead came in on Christmas Day and they said, "Hey, I want to get a new bathroom. Can I call them now? Can I text them now? What can I do or not do?"
Yeah. And again, none of this is official legal advice. Always contact your lawyer. But the if you were ahead of the game, you would have started to put the language that's required on your forms and started tracking one-to-one consent in a irreversible way on your forms, ideally last year. Most of you probably didn't, unfortunately. Especially if you're buying leads from aggregators like the big ones, Angie's, Modernize, wherever, doesn't matter. Most of them, to my knowledge, are kind of waiting as long as they can to start to do these changes. So I don't know if they have officially changed their forms over yet, or they're going to wait until January 27th. But they were definitely not compliant with the new law, early last year. Almost no one was, because why would you? No one was thinking about this law that came out in January 27th, 2025. Although we knew about it, you probably just didn't care, honestly. So if you were getting leads, say last March or last June, and you know, your website provider, your form provider, your lead aggregator, Facebook, Google, they didn't have the correct language in their forms. And now that's considered an old lead that you're continuing to call with your call center or a tool like Structurally. You probably can't call them anymore because you don't have one-to-one consent and you don't have them opted in the proper way. So any call that you make is likely not a good one for those old and rehash type leads,
Is that
unless you can
is
go out
that
to them.
any call or is that using a dialer or anything?
Calling or texting, they're now thought of to, according to the FCC, is almost the same, almost identical, calling and texting. And they categorize a call or a text to a lead. They use this special term called an ATDS, Automated Telephone Dialing System. If you use an ATDS, a dialer, to call a lead, you have to have proof of one-to-one consent with opt-in with this new language in order to use an ATDS, a dialer. And the way that they define a dialer, you might be thinking of like an actual like multi-line dialer or like a predictive dialer. A dialer can just be if you click a button and it makes a call, that's considered a dialer, unfortunately. So if you are hand dialing every letter one by one,
So you have to get like the old rotary phone.
you're okay. Yeah, you're okay to a degree. You have to scrub against the DNC in order to make a call hand dialed. Um, but like if you're using a CRM and you click a lead's phone number and that initiates a call, that is considered a dialer. Even if you're manually clicking every lead one by one, that's
Yeah.
still considered an ATDS, a dialer. So be very, very careful with the leads that you're calling.
So here's a question that I think probably everybody's thinking, but nobody has the courage to ask it, so I'll ask it. How does anybody know how it's dialed? Is this somehow coded into the phone call somehow?
It's a really good question. Obviously, we're questioning some ethically questionable things here, but I was actually on a panel about this topic last week. Um, a really good guy in the industry, Paul from West. You know Paul from Westlake? I forget Paul's last name. But he actually talked to the FCC about this, and he said, "Hey, how are you going to govern this?" So he had some really great stats. He basically said they're not. The FCC is smaller than you think. They only have like three offices, and This law applies to every single company on earth that generates leads. That's tens of millions. So they basically said this law will self-govern, and lawyers, litigators, there will be more millionaire made lawyers in this generation than we've probably seen in a long time. Because you're probably right. Like the average consumer who receives a call about filling out a form on Windows, let's just say I filled out a form on Windows last year, and you, a business, call me and it's out of compliance. Do I, as a lead, know that you dialed me on a dialer and I didn't get the proper opt-in on the form? A year ago? Probably not. Probably not. But if I somehow found that out, which many litigators will, because this is going to be a cash cow for them, if they somehow find that out and you don't have an auditable trail of proof that the lead opted in the proper way with one-to-one consent a year ago, you're gonna get fined.
Yeah, I'm looking at it from the opposite end, which is what if I do hand dial it? Like, can they
Sure.
can I prove that I hand dialed it versus auto
Probably
dial
There's probably a lot of software that will
it?
be invented to track this, but like, yeah, you can always, like within software applications, you can track if someone clicked a
Okay.
button, clicked
Okay.
a
We don't need to
clicked
get
a link.
too hung up on that detail, but
Yeah.
just curious. Okay, so where does that leave us with things like structurally, right? Because now potentially I've got this awesome tool that I'm using to dig my own grave with.
Yeah. It definitely, like I said, structurally is going to be a company, every CRM, every call center software, everyone who manages your phone numbers, we're all going to be kind of in the line of fire here with this law. So it's all in all of our best interest to make sure we're doing the right things. Structurally, we're going to do things we always have. We structurally doesn't allow you to use a product like ours to call and text leads with AI without consent. So no cold calling. That's never been something that we encourage. What we're also going to start looking at is using tools like Active Prospect, their trusted form tool, to say, okay, you have an actual certificate. You need to somehow house that certificate or show it to structurally as well. Or if you can't, then you take the risk knowing that you may contact the lead without a certificate proving that they opted in the appropriate way. So we're gonna take a lot more careful approach to using our AI calling and texting, especially for old and rehash leads, which is a use case that all of our customers use us for. But we have to be really careful because we don't want to encourage you to go call year-old leads who don't have the appropriate opt-in because that's
Yeah,
not
like I
good for
said,
anyone,
using
right?
your awesome tool to dig my own grave
Yes.
without even really knowing it. By the way,
Yeah.
quick plug for Active Prospect. I did a podcast with them last year. I'll find out the date and podcast episode number if anybody wants to go check that out. I would advise you to go check out Active Prospect. It's going to
Yep.
be a tool. It's kind of like insurance. Like insurance sucks to pay for it until you actually need it. Then you're glad you have it.
Yep.
So I'll put that in the show notes. Keep going though, Nate.
No, that's a great plug. They're going to be vital to contractors in this industry. Um, but yeah, otherwise it's going to be kind of business as usual. We want to encourage you to stay as compliant with the law, but we can't enforce you to do that. The good news is, come January 27th, if not already, like Rich, you said that all of the level 10 websites are updated. So, like, we have kind of said, oh, your old leads, your database leads, your rehash leads, they're probably kind of radioactive right now. Like, they're probably not a good idea to be calling. But starting now or January 27th, you're going to accumulate a database of properly opted in leads again. So if I'm on the podcast again 3, 6 months from now, we're going to still be working rehash and old leads because you would have accumulated a fresh set of those with proper opt-in. So it's going to be painful for a couple months, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, I'd like to encourage listeners. You alluded to this earlier, Nate. I think it's going to be easy for a contractor to potentially get lulled into a false sense of security because companies like Level 10 are making sure that our clients' websites are properly handled. Companies like Structurally are going to be at least vigilant in talking about it. The lead aggregating companies, like they really don't have a choice. They would be the first ones to be nuked if
Yep.
they didn't handle everything perfectly. So it's easy to just sort of complacently say, well, everybody's handling it, so I don't need to really worry about it. And that's probably true to like the 90th percent, but it's that last 10% that could kill you. So be
Mhm.
aware, ask questions, be vigilant.
The advice that I gave at the panel that I was just on was go audit your own business as if you were a compliance auditor. Like, go pick a random handful of 10 leads and prove that you have consent, one to one, undeniable proof. Because I'll tell you from Structurally's perspective, we have been audited multiple times on behalf of our customers. And that's never fun for anyone because the carriers come knocking on your door and say, hey, I don't think you had proof. I don't think you had the right to contact this lead. Go show me where they opted in. They will do that. We've been through it. They will ask for a screenshot of where and when the person opted in, and they will audit you.
Yeah.
So if you can't prove it, then you're out of luck. So
Yeah,
go
this
go
is
do
no
it
joke,
now
guys.
while you
From
can.
from my personal experience, this goes back to the late 90s and early 2000s. Many of you of Nate's generation won't be able to identify with this because it's ancient history. But there used to be an advertising medium in the late 90s, yeah, mid to late 90s and into the early 2000s called fax broadcasting, where you could actually set up your computer to send thousands and then tens of thousands and then ultimately hundreds of thousands or millions of faxes out to people advertising stuff. And we did this a bunch, and it was a murky area in the law. Okay, it was murky. There was federal laws that said it was illegal, and there were state laws that said it was legal, and there had been no judgment made. So we were sort of operating in this murky area at the time. And then a circuit court judge made a ruling that said, no, 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 this is illegal. And immediately all of the lawyers just did cannonballs into that pool. And we got sued big time over this. And I mean, we worked it out, but it was painful and it was stupid. And uh, to echo what Nate said, it's not the FCC that's coming after you. You're not being sued by the US government. You're being sued by lawyers that are representing, just Joe Schmo.
Yep. There will be a lot of self-made millionaire lawyers in this next batch of
I
because
want to emphasize that one more time. It's not the FCC that's going to come after you. It's Joe Schmo and his lawyer that are coming after you. Okay.
Think about it too, because this is such a emotional law. Everyone hates getting the spam calls. Now, after this, they may have legal grounds to really go after you. Uh,
Well,
so it's
let me
going to be
give you another personal
emotional.
experience. So I gave you a personal experience from 25 years ago when I ran into a problem, but more recently, my wife came to me and said, "Hey, there's something wrong with our island and our countertop. It's like 5 years old now, and it turns out I think it needs to be like conditioned or some kind of something needs to be done to it." And so she went online and filled out a form completely innocently, looking for somebody that could come recondition our quartz countertop or whatever. And she started getting phone calls immediately from concrete companies because apparently they got categorized somehow as concrete companies, including a couple of guys found my address and knocked on my door and they're like, "Hey, I heard you need concrete." Like, no. Like it was very invasive,
Yeah.
and I would say she got at least 10 phone calls plus the two guys showing up on my door. So like I'm a big fan of this law. I think it's really
Yep.
important and it's valuable. I know it kind of sucks for people listening to this call because it's making it a little bit harder, but the reality is it's better and you're going to piss off less people, and hey,
Yep.
let's make people happy and make money from people that want to buy from you.
hmm I agree.
Okay. Where should we go from here, Nate? We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, just to cover that last point, this is a good thing for the industry, for lead gen. I mean, you're much more of an expert in lead gen than I am, but it's going to create higher quality, higher intent leads across the board rather than, these large companies reselling the same lead 4 times. They're going to usually be sold once, and they're going to have to indicate that they only want to receive communication from John Smith Roofing and John Smith Roofing alone. So that's higher intent, higher quality, and then there will be fewer leads in the world, but there's going to be a lot higher intent leads, and
Hey,
that's
I
a
just
good
thought
thing.
of something. I hadn't thought of this until just now. Thanks for sparking my brain here.
Yeah.
Historically, here's how it's been with lead aggregators. Everybody has a love-hate relationship with lead aggregators. Like, I love them because they're cheap and they're, readily available, but I hate them because they're hard to get a hold of, they're competitive. And I've always said to smaller companies, particularly, like, you know what? Don't even try because here's the problem that you're running up against. You're running up against these 20, 50, 80, $100 million companies that have extremely sophisticated technology stacks that are contacting that lead. Speed to lead for them is anything over half a second is too slow.
Hmm.
And the little guy has a really hard time competing with that. Well, you know what? This is going to level that playing field. You
It
don't have
will.
to worry about getting it. Look, speed of lead is always going to be important because people, forget and, you don't want to call them 8 minutes later. You want to call them right now. But at least now you won't be competing with seven other freaking dudes whose tech
Yep.
stack texted, called, and left a voicemail within 10 seconds.
Yep. That's a really good point. I haven't thought about it that way, but
The
that
little
it should
guys
level. It
rejoice.
should, yeah, it should
Now,
level the
the
playing
downside
field.
is all of these leads are going to cost everybody, in my estimation, minimum 40% more,
Yep.
maximum probably 400% more.
Yep. That's the hard part.
But it's not the
That's the
hard
tricky
part.
part.
You're already paying. Let's say that leads cost triple. Let's say that happens.
Hmm.
You're already paying triple the lead cost. I talk to these companies all the time, and they tell me all the time a good number of leads that they get a hold of, not sell, not convert, get a hold of is 15. 25 is considered out of the park awesome.
Yep.
So you're already pay, it's already baked in. It's just annoying for freaking everybody.
Hmm.
So now we're just going to cut out all the noise. Okay,
100%. Yeah.
rant over.
Well, I actually have some fun stats on that's actually kind of something that we wanted to talk about next was some call center stats. So I can just dive into that
Do it.
because I think it's relevant to what you just said. So structurally, we text and call leads all day, every day with our AI. That's what we do. And I've been meaning to kind of pull some stats. You said that 15-20% was a good contact rate on especially some of these aggregated leads. What we've seen, so I want to take this from like a texting versus calling approach. Again, in terms of the law that comes out, texting and calling are the exact same to the letter of the law. I get asked all the time, why should I text leads? Why shouldn't I just keep calling them? What we've seen across all of our leads is an answer rate of 30% on if you call only, and an answer rate of 58% if you text and call. So we have this approach called the text call AI technique, which is exactly what it sounds like. You text a lead first, you immediately call them, and you do it with AI. You're going to more than or almost double your answer rate if you're texting and calling, which is well worth it, especially going forward. People want to communicate over messaging. It's such an important medium now. And we've also seen, so remember, 30% answer rate on call only, 58% answer rate on text and call. And then in terms of a qualification or a set rate, through our product, so this is the AI side of setting appointments, we're seeing about a 6% qualification or set rate from call only. So from answer to call, and a 17% qualification rate from call and text only. So this is kind of a shameless plug to say use texting. I talk to contractors all the time, and I'm amazed that we still haven't really adopted texting as much as I would think this industry would
Okay.
have yet. Um,
So those numbers you
but it's
just gave, I'm assuming, you tell me if I'm wrong, those are assuming this sort of toxic pool of crappy leads where the aggregators are selling them 18 times. So these
yeah,
numbers should go up a lot.
they should. A lot of our leads that Structurally processes are aggregator leads. And that is across multiple industries too, but we're kind of a churn and burn type product. You just buy leads and you throw them at us. Because if you have a really high quality, a high referral, you don't really need an AI to be like qualifying them.
Yeah.
But if you just send 1,000 over a month, then you probably do, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Now
those numbers should go up.
you kind of buried the lead. And I remember this from our first call. You talked about this text call AI, what'd you call it? Stack, text call AI,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep. Technique.
And technique. Okay, thank you. And you said something more specific about it on that first call, and I want to bring it back because I
Yep.
remember hearing this going, "Oh, this is really, really cool." I think you know where I'm
Yeah.
going with this, right?
Yep.
So here's what happens, at least on an iPhone, which I don't know what percentage of people are iPhone in America. Is it over 50%?
I think it's actually the minority, but I don't know.
It's only 18% worldwide. I happen to know because I happened to see that yesterday for no particular reason. But in America, especially people with money, it's going to be over 50%. Whatever it
Yeah.
is, it's something. But here's the thing. So if I text you first and then I call later,
Yep.
then the system is going, the iPhone is going to see. So if I text over, hey, this is Rich from level 10. I saw that you just filled out a form. I'd like to talk to you. And then I call 2 minutes later, or 4 minutes later, or 8 minutes later using the AI. Your iPhone is going to detect that that's the same number that this guy that just identified himself as Rich Harshaw. And
Yep.
so now on the phone call, it's going to say, call from, and then it'll have your number, and then it'll say maybe Rich Harshaw.
Yep.
And the person will see that instead of either spam risk or unknown number, it'll say maybe Rich Harshaw, and they'll go, who the hell's Rich Harshaw? But they'll answer
Yep.
it because it's actually suggesting that it's an actual human.
Yep. Except for with Structurally's case with an AI, which is pretty fun. 'Cause our AI takes on a persona, so it might say this is Alex with level 10. So then it says that over the text, and then it calls with AI, and then the call comes through as maybe Alex, or you can customize it to be your business name too. But a personal story. I was looking for Windows last year. I filled out a form for one of the big window guys, and I think I got 7 phone calls from them, same business, from 7 different phone numbers. And I ended up talking to one guy, and I was like, look, I run a company that does this, and you guys are on top of speed to lead, so good job, but you're like killing me. This is too much for even me. So please, sorry, take me off your list because I couldn't stand it anymore. Guess what happened 5 seconds later? I got another call from them, even though I just asked to be taken off my list. I was like, "Hey, look, I just talked to your guy. Like, seriously, take me off your list." But the story there is, if I wasn't savvy enough, or even if I was, like, they called me from 7 different phone numbers. For all I knew, that was 7 different businesses that were calling me. And I did not like that. It was like your experience with the concrete replacement, Rich. Like that experience is so awful to consumers that I was a ready buyer of Windows and I got hounded so hard that I couldn't stand it anymore.
Yeah. And you were impressed, but
Yeah.
overly impressed to the extent that it was annoying.
Yes. Yep. So, a part of the text call AI technique is call from the same phone number that you text from and use as much as you possibly can one phone number. Don't give me 7 different phone numbers to expect your calls or texts from, because then I'm just confused.
You think in that example with the window company that the seven different phone numbers for seven separate phone calls was deliberate, or is it just sort of randomly their system was doing that, do you think?
I really have no idea. I would probably say it was not deliberate, but because they didn't have their systems or knowing what I know about them, I'm not going to say their name. They're a big company here, but I feel like they maybe had too much tech. They had a CRM, a call center tool, maybe an AI tool, maybe another tool, and all the systems like freaked out at the same time and were like, new lead, boom, 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 boom. And
Yeah.
it just attacked me and they didn't
Okay.
sync up.
So that's good information. You got any more stats, or is that it for the
Nope,
stats? I
those are
think it
the high
was
level stats that really matter. You should add texting if you're not doing so right now. Be careful with both, but try and use the same phone number across the board as much as you can.
okay. Okay, great. We got a few more minutes. Let's give you one more at bat here. What else you want to talk about?
Really, what I would say, since I'm the resident AI expert to a degree here, want to kind of talk a little bit about AI. I'd like to see what you're thinking of seeing, Rich, in the industry. But I always like to kind of say, like, we just started a new year. It's 2025. Like, what is 2025 at the end of this year? What is AI going to look like? Is something that I've been asked a few times, and this is no surprise. Maybe it is to certain networks, but 2025 from like what's the new mind-blowing AI tech that we're all going to be amazed at when it's released this year. 2025 from all of the big AI players out there is the year of what's called agentic AI. So it's like an agent. And that word means AI can go off and do something on its own and make decisions on its own. So it's kind of like the next version of like workflows, but something becomes agentic when it is able to make decisions on its own. So some early examples of this are you might have an agent, an AI agent that creates social media posts for you. And that's all you have to tell it to do. You say, go make me a social media post, and it will run through its decisions. It will make decisions on its own, and it will take all the necessary actions on its own to actually create the asset, post the asset, log into your account, and post it. That's where all these huge companies like OpenAI and Google are moving towards this year is the year of the agentic AI. And I think it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, well, I just keep hoping that AI gets better because right now I feel like we're in an age where the AI has come to fruition, but it's like it's a toddler or a child. Like I you can probably imagine being a marketing guy. I get the algorithm feeds me all of these marketing tools in Facebook and Instagram and things like that. And there's all these tools that say, "Hey, we can create AI generated social media posts for you that are indistinguishable from humans." You're like, "Well, that sounds
Hmm.
pretty good." And then
Yep.
you sign up for it and do the demo, and it does not look human. Like
Yeah.
the ads will be like, I actually was created by AI. You can't even tell. Look, I look totally normal.
Yep.
And then you try it and it's like the mouth doesn't. But
Yep.
I just have this sneaking suspicion that all of these things that are pretty good now are just going to get iteratively better and better and better. I got to
Yep.
believe that we're within 1 to 2 years of all of this kind of stuff being flawless.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think the latest and greatest models that have been put out, they've made conversational AI really good, but now it's kind of all these companies are figuring out how to put the glue together to make it useful in your stack, your technology stack. And I think that's going to come to fruition this year.
So
Like,
let me flip that question on you, Nate.
yeah.
Like I said earlier, I'll give the phone number for the sample call in the
Yep.
show notes. how do you see that improving? Because right now, here's my take on that. I think it's really, really good, and it's definitely well beyond the threshold of usable, but it's not flawless, and it's not what I would call quote unquote non-detectable. Do
Yep.
you see that continuing to improve within your own program and becoming undetectable at some point?
Yeah, it's kind of a, so I do have the number. I'll drop it here and I'll let you put it in the show notes too. But if you want to call the AI, it's 515-585-6815.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so,
Highly recommended. Do that. All
mhm.
right. So answer my question then.
So it's kind of a debate that we have. We've actually run for the last quarter of last year, we ran almost a bi-weekly experiment of how detectable is it, basically. Um, we started out by not disclosing at all that we were an AI and trying to figure out how many people detected. Zero, zero detected in this instance, which was pretty statistically significant. So then what we did was we started changing up the introduction to say things like, "I'm Alex, your AI assistant." Click. So what we learned, the thing that we tested consistently was the introduction. What we found was if we didn't disclose that we were an AI, people didn't care. They had full-on conversations and zero people detected that it was a human. If people knew that it was an AI up front, more hung up right away. I don't blame them. That is what it is. But we kind of kept iterating through these intros because I do think that in the future, in the near future, everyone on Earth is going to be talking to AI. And it doesn't matter if you think it's a human or not. It really doesn't matter. It will just become the norm that we all talk to AI to do things.
I would
Uh,
say that yours currently, it's really, I really encourage people to do the demo because it's that good. The only thing that where I would say it seems semi-detectable is there's a little bit of a lag time. That's a
yep.
little bit unnatural
Yeah.
compared to a human. Like if you could eliminate that lag time, I think you could just completely fool everybody all the time.
You should try it again. It's been an internal debate. We actually sped it up so much that the AI was too fast. It would talk over you because people kind of talk like I'm talking now. You have a slight pause in
Yeah.
your language, and the AI, so many things are running so quickly while it's on a call that it determined that someone was done talking just because I took a really slight pause like that, and it would try and jump in. And then it would kind of be it talking over you, you talking over it. So we actually had to put a slight artificial delay in our streaming service to actually put a little delay in. So it wasn't talking over people as much. I wouldn't say that we've cracked the code there. It's still kind of tough, but it's just like that was one of the most eye-opening things that we found last year was like the latency problem is almost to the opposite effect that everything got too fast. So we had to purposefully slow it down a little bit.
Okay, so I just want to make sure everybody that's listening right now doesn't get this twisted. Like, hey, this is a pretty good program, but it has this major flaw. That is not the case. I would say at most it has a minor flaw, and I would say that the flaw is not even really a flaw. It's just like something that's not exactly perfect. Um, the option is, okay, great. Don't use this AI. And trust me, that is a way, way, way worse solution. Do the demo 515-585-6815. You'll see what I mean. And if you're not already on this thing, you'll immediately sign up. And if there's some reason why you're not signing up for it, then look, that's just dumb. That's on you. I don't have anything to say about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's fun to test out, give it a go, and yeah, it's going to be a new world. Um, keep fighting the good fight on the lead gen side, Rich, and We'll keep fighting the good fight on the lead conversion side.
Yeah, agentic AI, it's coming at you. Hey, I think didn't you pull up a case study from one of my clients that you wanted to share?
Yeah.
Kind of
So there was
here's a parting shot for you. Okay, so give me the parting
yeah.
shot case study.
So You Build It is a company that helps. It's a little bit more on the design build side of things, which honestly structurally works a little bit more with the churn and burn, high lead volume folks, tons of leads running through, need windows, need roofing. The design build folks, they're helping people build whole houses at You Build It. They get fewer leads. Typical sticker price is what, $500,000 to build a house? Just call it that, something like that.
Yeah, but
And
here's the difference though, Nate, is that they are advertising for a lead magnet. So the lead
yep.
and most of the people listening to this podcast right now are not advertising for lead magnets. They're advertising for call to set an appointment. But when you do the lead magnet thing, you get a lot of tire kickers. People are like, "Oh yeah, I think that, or I think we're advertising for a guide called You Can Build Your Own Home or You Can Remodel Your Own Home," depending on
Yep.
which side of the aisle we're on there. So they definitely we started them off with Hatch a few years ago. It's a similar program to Structurally, except it doesn't have the AI component. And then we
Mhm.
flipped them over to Structurally when I found out about this. So tell us what happened.
Yeah. Michael, who runs one of the franchise locations for You Build It, basically said structurally turned his business around. We were really focusing on going after his unconverted or old leads, which, you know, you still can right now, and you will be able to once we build up the compliant database again. But he said, well, this is a quote. What really amazes me about Structurally is how it seamlessly connects with clients. He's had appointments with people that he didn't even recognize at first because the system had taken care of everything, texts, follow-up, scheduling, without having me to intervene. I remember he told me one time someone came into his office who said, "Yeah, I was talking to Alex. Um, they set an appointment right now." And he was like, "Oh, okay." He had no idea. A person showed up
Did he
and was
forget that
ready
the
to go.
AI's name was Alex?
I forget what he called what he named the AI, but basically an
It's like,
appointment walked
who's
in and
Alex?
was ready to go. And that's a story that we've heard a couple times. We've had people we've had some people disclose that it was actually an AI assistant. We've had some people say, "Oh, Alex, yeah, he's out on vacation this week." So it's up to you. Uh, but yeah, I thought that was a pretty fun story. He's processing a lot of leads with us, a lot of level 10 leads with us. And, you know, it's really turned his business around.
Yeah, that's really interesting because when I first got in this industry remodeling, one of my first big clients was a sunroom company. And, sunroom is a big purchase and it's a visual thing. And so, again, remember, this is 2005. This was when I first got heavily involved in this industry. So I went to these guys and I immediately said, we need to run an offer for a report like we do with You Build It Still Now. So we put together a sunroom guide. And so the offer was free sunroom. I don't remember exactly how we said it, but free sunroom guide. And so they generate all these leads because you can get so many more leads when you do a lead magnet because it's a lower risk, lower commitment next step. And I immediately found out that in the remodeling industry, what you just called a minute ago, Nate, churn and burn, they hate these leads. They can't stand these lead magnet leads because they want to set a freaking appointment right now.
Yep.
Well, here's what I found. I found that the number of leads that set right now is about the same whether you do an appointment set type advertisement or a lead magnet. But then on the lead
Yeah.
magnet, you get like 5x more leads that just want the lead magnet that don't want to set the appointment. So, in other words, maybe you get 40 leads here and 40 leads here that set appointments, but on the lead magnet side, you get another, what it would be like 200 leads. We just froze there. I'll edit that.
Yep. We did just freeze.
you get like 4x or 5x the leads, and using something like Structurally, you could actually convert those leads into appointments over time. So you get the same number of leads immediately, but now you get the benefit of this. So I'm actually going to push this with some of my clients. Let's try some lead magnet stuff. I just gave up on lead magnets because so many of my clients were like, we don't want those leads. Well, you're getting the same number of leads, but now you're getting more leads, and they just said we don't want them. My internet connection doesn't like it
Again,
when I start shouting.
I guess not.
All right, we'll just cut that part out. But anyway, I'll review the tapes and see what we need to cut out. But if it's any good, I'll end with this. So yeah, maybe we'll do some lead magnet stuff that we can then throw Structurally at and see if it can convert some of those guys. Okay, Nate, thanks for being on the podcast again today. Any last parting shots?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the last word.
No, I think what Rich was saying is right. Have a plan to systematize your follow-up. Have a plan to audit your business from the one-to-one consent, and let's make 2025 a great year for lead conversion.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Appreciate you having me on, Rich. Take
Bye now.
care.